everything. The commission, who'd blessed Mikey's takeover, sent representatives to make peace. They met with Lucky at the Waldorf Astoria. "We made a mistake," they said. "We thought you weren't coming back." Lucky looked at them with those cold eyes. "I'm leaving in 3 days. The government's shipping me to Italy. But before I go, understand this. I built the commission. I created the structure that keeps peace in this business, and that structure stays in place whether I'm here or in Sicily." He pointed at Frank Costello. "Frank runs my family. You respect him like you respect me." Understood. They understood. Lucky Luciano sailed to Italy on May 11, 1946. He would never return to American soil, but the deal he enforced at Barletta held for the next 16 years. Frank Costello ran the Luciano family. The commission maintained peace, and nobody ever questioned Lucky's authority again, even from exile. The story of Mikey's betrayal became legend. Old-timers still tell it, about how Lucky came back from 9 years in prison, walked into a restaurant, and with 1 razor and 80 witnesses, reminded everyone who really ran New York, "You can lock a man up for 9 years. You can steal his organization. You can tell people he's finished. But you can't take his throne, not if he's a real boss." Lucky Luciano proved something that night. Power isn't about who's physically present. It's about who commands respect. And respect isn't given. It's earned through loyalty, intelligence, and the will to enforce your authority when challenged. Michael Romano died in Miami in 1959, heart attack. The scar was still visible in his obituary photo. Lucky Luciano died in Italy in 1962, but his legacy lived on through the structure he created, the commission, which still governs organized crime today. And it all came back to that night, at Table 9. The night Lucky proved that betrayal has consequences. The night the chairman reminded everyone, you can't replace a legend. You can only serve him. If this story about loyalty, power, and street justice moved you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you understand that real bosses don't need to be present to command respect. Comment below, what would you have done in Lucky's position? Turn on notifications because next week we're revealing how Lucky Luciano created the commission and changed organized crime forever. Remember, in the Mafia, respect is eternal, and Lucky Luciano earned his for life. None of the old guard challenged him. They were here to negotiate, not fight. Giuseppe Profaci spoke first. "Lucky, thank you for coming. We wanted to discuss the future of our organization." "The commission is the future," Lucky said calmly. "That's what we want to talk about. The commission has served its purpose. It brought peace after the Castellammarese War. We're grateful for that. But now it's time to return to our traditions, our Sicilian ways." "The Sicilian ways got us the Castellammarese War," Lucky replied. "Got hundreds of our people killed, got the police all over us, got our businesses destroyed. Why would we go back to that?" Stefano Magaddino leaned forward. "Because traditions matter. Hierarchy matters. You can't run a family like a democracy, Charlie. Someone has to be in charge. One man, one boss." "We have 5 bosses," Lucky said. "Each family runs itself. The commission settles disputes." "It's working. It's weak," Gaggiano interjected. "Negotiations, votes, committees. That's not how men of honor operate. That's how politicians operate." "We are politicians," Lucky said. "We're businessmen who use violence when necessary. But violence should be the last option, not the first." Profaci smiled. "You're young, Lucky. You don't understand the old ways. But that's not your fault. You grew up here, not in Sicily. You don't have the history we have. I have enough history to know that the old ways don't work in America. This isn't Sicily. This is New York. Different rules, different game." Profaci nodded to Magaddino, who pulled out the briefcase. set it on the table, opened it. Stacks of $100 bills. Neat, organized. A fortune, $10 million, Profaci said. Cash, untraceable. You walk away from the business. Move to Florida, California, anywhere you want. Buy hotels, casinos. Go legitimate. Live like a king for the rest of your life. He closed the briefcase. In exchange, we dissolve the commission. We elect a new boss of bosses. We return to the traditional structure. Everyone wins. You get rich without the risks. We get the organization we want. Lucky looked at the briefcase. 10 million in 1936 was equivalent to about 200 million today. Generational wealth, enough to set up his family forever. He could take it. Walk away. Let the old guard destroy themselves with their blood feuds and ego battles. And if I say no, Lucky asked. Profaci's expression didn't change. Then you're making an enemy of tradition, of history, of the men who built this thing before you were born. That's not a threat, Charlie. It's a reality. The room went quiet. Meyer Lansky watched Lucky carefully. Frank Costello's hand moved closer to his waistband. Lucky stood up slowly, walked to the window, looked out at the New York City skyline, the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, a city he'd helped modernize, a city that didn't care about Sicilian traditions. Then he turned back to the three old bosses. You know what your problem is? You're living in the past. You think because something worked in Sicily in 1890 it'll work in New York in 1936. But it won't. Times change. Business changes. You either adapt or you die. He pointed at the briefcase. 10 million is a lot of money, but it's not about money. It's about legacy. It's about building something that lasts. Lucky walked back to the table, placed his hands on it, leaned forward. I killed Joe Masseria. I killed Salvatore Maranzano. I ended the Castellammarese War. I created the commission, and I did all of that because I saw what you can't see. The old ways are destroying us. He looked each boss in the eye. Your blood feuds, your vendettas, your boss of bosses bullshit. It's making us weak. It's making us targets. The police love it when we kill each other. Makes their job easy. So what do you propose? Profaci asked. I propose we keep the commission. We keep the structure. We keep the peace. And if you can't accept that, if you need a boss of bosses so badly, then elect one. But don't expect me to step aside so you can drag us back to the 19th century. Profaci stood up. You're refusing our offer? Lucky smiled. I'm not refusing anything. I'm just telling you the old ways are dead, and no amount of money is going to bring them back. Those 5 words, the old ways are dead. They hung in the air like smoke. Stefano Magaddino stood up, his face red. You're a disrespectful punk, Luciano. You think because you killed 2 bosses you can dictate to men who've been in this life since before you were born. I think I can dictate to men who are still fighting wars that ended in Sicily 50 years ago, Lucky replied calmly. Galligiano stood now too, all 3 old bosses on their feet, angry, insulted. But Lucky remained seated, calm, in control. You've made your choice, Profaci said. You've chosen to disrespect tradition, to reject our offer, to stand against men who built this organization. I've chosen progress over nostalgia, Lucky said, and the younger generation agrees with me. Frank Costello, Albert Anastasia, Vito Genovese, Tommy Lucchesi, Carlo Gambino, they all see what I see. The future. He leaned back in his chair. You can keep your 10 million. I'll make more than that in the next 5 years, and I'll do it while keeping the peace, keeping the police off our backs, and keeping all the families profitable. Lucky stood up now. The meeting's over. The commission stays. If you have a problem with that, take it to a vote. But you'll lose, because most of the bosses understand what you don't. Cooperation makes us stronger than competition. The three old bosses looked at each other. They'd come here expecting to buy out a young upstart. Instead, they'd been lectured by him, dismissed by him. Profaci picked up the briefcase. "You're making a mistake, Charlie. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." Lucky. Meyer and Frank walked out of that suite, leaving the three old bosses standing there with their 10 million and their outdated traditions. As they rode the elevator down, Meyer turned to Lucky. "You just turned down $10 million. I turned down slavery," Lucky replied. "That money came with chains. They wanted me gone so they could undo everything I built. Can't let that happen." "They'll come after you now," Frank said. "Let them try. I've got the young bosses on my side. I've got the commission structure working. And I've got something they don't have: vision." What Lucky didn't mention was that he'd already planned for this. Already anticipated that the old guard would resist the commission. Over the next 6 months, Lucky quietly strengthened his position. Made deals with the younger bosses, secured their loyalty. Made sure they understood that the commission protected their interests better than any boss of bosses ever could. When Giuseppe Profaci tried to rally support for dissolving the commission, he found none. The other families voted to keep it. Keep the structure, keep the peace. By late 1936, the old guard had been sidelined. They still ran their families, but they no longer had the power to change the overall structure. The commission had won. Lucky's vision had won. In April 1936, just 1 month after turning down the 10 million, Lucky was arrested on charges of running a prostitution ring. He was sentenced to 30 to 50 years. Some whispered that Profaci had tipped off the authorities. Others said it was just Lucky's luck running out. But even from prison, Lucky's structure held. The commission continued. Frank Costello ran the Luciano family. The peace held. Lucky served 9 years before the government commuted his sentence in exchange for his help during World War II. But he was immediately deported to Italy. He would never set foot in America again. But his creation, the commission, would outlive him by decades. It still exists today, governing organized crime in America. And it all came back to that meeting at the Waldorf Astoria in March 9, the day Lucky Luciano turned down $10 million to protect his vision of a modern, organized mafia. Giuseppe Profaci died in 1962. Stefano Magaddino in 1974. Gaetano Galliano in 1953. All of them outlived by the structure they tried to destroy. Lucky Luciano died in Italy in 1962, at age 64. But his legacy, the commission, the Five Families, the modern American Mafia, lived on, because Lucky understood something the old guard never did. Traditions are fine until they stop working, and when that happens, you either evolve or you become extinct. 5 words. The old ways are dead. That's all it took to change history. If this story about vision, courage, and refusing to sell out inspired you, hit that subscribe button. Drop a like if you believe some things are worth more than money. Comment below, would you have taken the 10 million, or would you have fought for your vision like Lucky? Turn on notifications, because next week we're revealing Lucky Luciano's final days in exile, and the empire he ruled from across the ocean. Remember, in organized crime, money is temporary. Legacy is forever. And Lucky Luciano's legacy changed everything.